I don't want to be like here, look
You
up.
can see how the consent list, right? Yep.
You think we're all good? All right. Call to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could be so kind as to do the roll call.
You bet I will. Darcy,
Present.
Wade,
Present.
Danielle,
Present.
Brandon,
Present.
Eric,
Here.
Nikki's here, Paige.
Present.
We have a full
I
board.
think we have a full
Very
board.
good. All right. Do we have any community input this evening before we get started? Going once? We do not. All right. We will move on to introductions.
All right.
Take it away.
That's my cue. So, welcome and thank you so much for having me. So I'm Amy Jordan of the Minnesota School Boards Association, and I will be leading the MSBA team for your search. Really briefly, I know you all have said your names, so I'm not gonna ask you to say that again, but if you can just tell me how long you've been on the board and where you went to high school. So do you wanna go ahead and start, Paige?
Do you remember?
About 12 years. My name's Wade Welper, and I'm sorry, I went to school in Caledonia. Ooh, yeah. Sorry.
I'm Paige Shapel. How long have I been? January?
3 months.
Yeah. And I went to school way far away, North Carolina.
Okay.
No.
I've been on the board 2 years and I went to high school here.
Okay. We can come back. No.
Nikki Miller, 5 years on the board here and 8 years in the board at St. Peter's School in Boca. And I went to school at Logan High School in La Crosse.
Got it, okay.
Eric Morgan, 13 years on the board, and I went to school in Spring Grove, Minnesota.
Danielle Martel, 2 years now and I went to school here.
Brandon Lang, 2 months, just like Paige.
Okay.
I went to Fillmore Central.
Great. All right, well, thank you for indulging me in that, because I always like to hear if everybody's from the same area or if there's a mix or where that's at, and also how long you've been on the board. How many of you have been through a superintendent search process? So 3 of you? Okay, great. Okay, so just a brief kind of review of process. The statutes that come into play most with superintendent search, of course, is open meeting law. So all aspects of superintendent search are done in open meeting. There is no reason that you can close a meeting, even to discuss contract negotiations, because it's not a bargaining unit. So just keeping that in mind, that all aspects of the superintendent search are done in open meeting. Balancing with that, of course, is the Data Practices Act. So you will receive access to view all of the application materials for everybody who applies for the position. You'll have access through an online system. Is there anybody who would prefer to view hard copies, make an appointment in the office and view hard copies? Or are you all comfortable viewing them online? Okay, so you'll have access to it, basically it's held up in the cloud through our application system, and you'll have access to be able to review all of the application materials. And so when you are deciding who you're going to interview, you'll be referring to the candidates as candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, and so on and so forth. You'll receive an email from Shelby in our office, and she'll have a list with all of the applicant names along with their alpha identifier, so that you are all on the same page. When you're talking about candidate A or candidate B, you all know who you're referring to. So that's at the selection meeting. Their names will become public once they have been selected for an interview, once they become a finalist. And in statute, a finalist is somebody who has been selected by the school board for an interview. All right, so that's kind of the tricky part as far as it goes. Again, anybody else who applied for the position who is not selected for an interview, they remain private data forever. So basically, throughout the search process, if you hear, or if somebody comes up to you and says, I heard so-and-so applied, you can't confirm or deny whether or not they applied or not, because only unless they're being interviewed, then it's obviously, yes, they did apply. Only at that point can you agree that yes, they did, and if they didn't, you can't confirm or deny that at all. So that's the only pieces that I really wanted to talk about as far as review of process. Do you have any questions about that at all, about open meeting law or the data practice of that? And so-
Thank you for that.
And then also, to keep in mind when you are reviewing the application materials, making sure that you're not doing it in a public place, like you don't wanna be sitting at a local coffee shop where somebody can walk behind you and see the names on your screen. So just being mindful of that, and even in your own homes, because again, it is private data, making sure that, somebody's not walking past you and seeing names in the, on your computer screens. And then also making sure that you're not then, once you see who's applied, getting together with any of your fellow board members to discuss the applicants. You have to save that for an open meeting when you do your selection meeting. That's when you'll be talking about who applied and whether you want, not who, but by their alpha identifier and who you're interested in hearing more from and who do you want to interview. Okay? So the next thing that we're gonna do is talk about timeline. So if you go to the second page of the packet, you'll see we have some tentative set dates. Again, everything's pretty flexible depending on what your availability is. And then also, you can kind of see, so we're doing, with us, you're doing the limited search, and we'll get into the details of that a little bit later, but you can see the parts that we'll be participating in with MSBA, and then the stuff that you guys will be doing on your own. But of course, I'm available to you for questions that you may have throughout the search process, so don't hesitate to reach out to me if you do have any questions about what's happening or what's going on or how you need to do something along the way. And so that's kind of what our next piece is to talk through the timeline and get some dates set for the remainder of the search so that we can plug those into the vacancy brochure so that it can be posted and opened on Monday right away. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through a little bit of what the meetings are. So of course, February 27th, that's today, that's our planning meeting. Tentatively, I have it set that we will post it right away on Monday, March 3rd, and we'd have it open for about 3 weeks, which is March 24th. That is a shorter timeline than usual. We usually have them open a little bit longer than that, but I know you don't wanna get too far and too close to, the end of the year and contract season because you'll lose applicants, the closer you get. So of course, right now is kind of the busiest time for applicants right now. So tentatively March 24th, beginning the next day, MSBA will start reviewing all of the application materials and we'll compare it to the leadership profile, the hiring criteria that the board selected during your board survey. And we will send a recommended list of finalists that we believe you should interview or look into interviewing. I'll send that on that Friday on March 28th. On the March 26th, so that it closes the 24th, the 25th will begin our review, and the next day is when you'll gain access to the application materials. So that's when you'll be, on the March 26th is when you'll be able to start reviewing and seeing everybody who has applied for the position, and doing your own review of materials to determine who you think would be the best fit. Please note, our recommendations are just that. Those are our recommendations. That it's so important to us to have transparency throughout the process. That's why we give you access to all of the application materials so that you know that you're making the best decision for your school district. And so it is just a recommendation, and in this process, with the limited search, we don't do the deeper vetting of the candidates. And so we'll send you our recommendations based on what we already know of the candidates. A lot of times we're already familiar with them. We may have already done vetting if they also applied to another district at some point in time. And so we'll base it on that information if we have it, depending on who the candidates are. But we'll send those recommendations, but we don't do additional reference checking or anything beyond that. So typically we would do like a pre-screening interview with them, and we'll do reference checks. We'll dig into them a lot deeper before we give our recommendations. And so just knowing that we're not doing that, so you'll want to have a couple people on the board who is doing the reference checks for you right off the bat. Yes.
So when you send us your recommendations, are you sending them to us as candidate ABC based on who you think is the best fit?
Mhm.
And then second best, third best?
Not ranked. No,
Okay.
rankings are public data.
Got it.
So don't ever rank your candidates during the superintendent search process, because
Okay.
that becomes public.
Yep.
Yeah, so don't rank them as first choice, second choice, third choice. Just who are you interested in hearing from, who are you interested in interviewing, not in any particular order.
So the ABCD is not a
That's
ranking,
a
it's
total
just
random, you'll get that the day that you
Yeah.
get access.
Just making sure to
Yeah.
clarify that, cause I think
Yes.
there was confusion before. Thank you.
Yep, no, it is not a ranking by any means.
Yeah.
It's really just so that everybody's talking about the same person, and we don't put them in alphabetical order, cause then that's easy for everyone to figure out who you're talking about. Because it's private data, we can't do that.
Sure.
And so it's just a random order of the identifier list, yeah. Yep, okay, and so then the dates that you guys will need to set are the date that you're going to select your finalists, so that's the date, the meeting when you would be referring to candidates as candidate A, candidate B, and so on. So that will be the first one that's highlighted and in the yellow. And then we recommend that you also talk about and set your interview questions. And then also talking about what your interview procedures are gonna be that evening as well. So talking about where you're gonna hold them and all of that, and and what it's gonna look like. And then also, we need to set dates for first round of interviews. Typically, if you're holding the interviews in the evenings, we tell you to select 2 dates, try to do back to back or maybe 1 day apart. Just because if it's in the evening, if you're interviewing 6 candidates, you don't wanna do them all in 1 day unless you're starting much earlier in the day. Interviews are typically 60 minutes, so if you're interviewing 6 people, that gets to be a really long day. And so we typically will have you set 2 dates unless you're planning to do like an all day and you're starting earlier in the day. And then for round 2, and I wanna point out that it says board conducts reference checks and holds second round of interviews. However, since the difference in that is that typically for a full search, MSBA will have already done the reference checks from anybody who is on their application materials. Well, their names become public at that first highlighted meeting. So now you can check with other people, right? It's not private data anymore. So you don't have to stick to their reference list that they provided to you. So you can call other board members from, whichever district that they're from. I'm going to highly recommend that not every board member does that you, as a board, decide who's going to do that, and maybe just 2 board members, and talk about who you want them to call. Do you want them to call a couple other board members? Do you want them to reach out to teachers, or do you want them to reach out to somebody on like their admin team? Talking about who you want to reach out to specifically, but then when you're taking those notes, please don't put specifically in the notes who you're referring to or who you talk to. And then when you're talking about it in the meeting, you also don't want to refer to who you specifically talk to. So for example, if you talk to board members, you'll say, I talked to board members and this is what I learned. And also being very careful that if you're learning anything that is not positive, that you're very careful that it is completely fact-based, because if you're talking about it in an open meeting, that puts your district at risk. So be very mindful of that piece, that you wanna make sure that you're only speaking in fact. And if you have questions as to how to approach something, please call me, because I can help walk you through how to do that, okay? So those additional reference checks, typically we say only do those on your finalists for round 2. Don't go through the trouble of doing that, because as soon as your names go public, you will be lobbied for and against candidates, so be ready for that as well. As soon as the names get out, I always joke, let the Googling begin, because that's what happens. And people will reach out to you and they'll say, I heard this, I heard that. Don't engage in the conversation. Please listen to what they're saying. Thank them for their contribution and for their interest. And if you hear something concerning, let me know, if it's fact-based. Of course, if it's my uncle's brother said that this happened, well, every leader, every every leader does not have 100% fans, right? So just keeping that in mind as well, that no matter what happens, not everybody's happy all of the time, so. All right, so, and again, only do that on the people who you're bringing back for round 2. Typically, we would recommend that you bring back 2 to 3 people for round 2. All right.
And it is possible after the first round to find the candidate.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yes, we have had people do that a lot this year, absolutely.
And with references like when Mr. Mork and I called before, we called like the head of a bus company. We talked about these other people who don't directly report, so it's not, and board members are fine, but we'd like to hear more from the people who are, report to the superintendent and how that he or she has treated them and things like that. So that's an interesting thing about getting those names out of the folks. So just an FYI.
Absolutely, yep. And yeah, normally for round 1, we set tentative spaces for up to 6 candidates. You may look at the pool and you may be like, these 4 are way stronger than anybody else, so why waste anybody else's time, right? Why waste your own time? So it's okay to just interview 4 people, or if you can really narrow it down, just start with 3 people. And then you may find after round 1 that you have a clear, person that you wanna offer to. We typically recommend that you do 2, even if you're down to 2, just because sometimes, in the first round, somebody's really comfortable, and sometimes in the second round, they're like, oh, now I really want this, and they may get a lot more nervous. And so sometimes it's nice to see them twice to also see if, were they just having a good day, or are they consistent, or what that looks like. That doesn't mean you need to do it. If you have a clear choice, you don't need to, again, waste their time or your time. Also, one thing to keep in mind is sometimes usually on round 2, you offer tours. And so that would be something that they may not have the time to do, depending on what your interview process looks like. Sometimes you involve other, district employees or staff in the interview process, and sometimes you don't. And so just talking through what all of that is gonna look like for you guys, you'll wanna do that at that first highlighted meeting. When you select your finalists, you'll do interview questions and then look at what round 1 looks like versus round 2. And then keeping in mind, if you are inviting people to watch your board interviews and provide feedback, or if you're having them do them themselves, thinking through how you're going to receive feedback and what that process looks like. There's all kinds of different ways to do that, but please know that the school board is the only hiring authority for the superintendent. It is the most important job you have as school board members, so don't give that away. You have been elected for a reason, to represent the people of the community. So you want to gather feedback, but you want to own it. You have to know that you're making the right decision for your district. So don't give that away. If you involve other people in your interviews, I highly recommend you not call them hiring committees, because they are not. You are the only hiring authority, you are the only hiring committee. Interview committee is fine if that's what you want to refer to them as, but just making sure that you're really careful about what that looks like if you're doing it. The majority of districts now don't do a lot of interview committees. In the last 3 years, only 3 districts that I know of have done interview committees in the searches that MSBA has done. Typically what they do, because it can put the district at risk, because it can be, if somebody has certain agenda, obviously you wanna make sure that the questions are approved. You have to follow EEO's protocols, making sure that there's no questions that are being asked that could be discriminatory. And so there's a lot more that goes into that. What we're seeing the trend doing is, if you wanna involve additional community members or admin or staff or anybody, parents, you can have all kinds of people involved. We recommend that you do the interviews and you invite them to watch all of your interviews, and then they provide you feedback through some type of mechanism, whatever works for you guys, that you receive that feedback before you go into deliberations, so that they're able to provide information to you, but in a safe manner that wouldn't necessarily put the district at risk. That's not saying you can't do it the other way. Please do what's best for your school district. You just need to be mindful of those things and making sure that they're being managed properly. Okay. And typically that's done in round 2, not always in round 1, but again, you're gonna wanna do what's best for you guys. And then obviously the next day, usually that one I don't highlight because usually what we recommend is that you don't have the whole board or you don't have a committee who's meeting to do the negotiations of the contract. We highly recommend that you have the parameters of the contract set and decided ahead of time. And again, you can't close a meeting for that discussion, you need to talk about it. We'll be setting a salary range tonight, and then, because that'll need to go onto the vacancy brochure. But just kind of have, typically it's the board chair, not always, but almost always, it's the board chair is like the board designee, and will do the negotiations with the lone finalist. Otherwise, you have to, every time that you wanna come back and talk about it, you have to set another open meeting, because it can't be done in closed meeting. So you have to follow open meeting law to do those negotiations, and so we say, have all of the parameters set ahead of time, so you know what you can do during the negotiations process, what is the overall, basically the overall package price, so that you know where you can negotiate and not. So that's typically what we recommend. Again, do what's best for your district. If you wanna do the whole board, you can do the whole board, you can do it in an open meeting. Otherwise, normally what happens is you already know the parameters. After you make your decision, you can send a contract right out that night or the next morning, and you can then, start those discussions more one-on-one, knowing that the board has already kind of agreed to these parameters, and it's not something that you have to vote on or anything. You have to vote on and finalize to, the final contract, the signed contract. But you wanna know parameters, because you wanna make sure that when you do come back with that it's not gonna be voted down. So that's typically what we recommend, but again, you're gonna do what's best for your district, but you can definitely reach out if you have any questions about that as well. MSBA does have a model contract that we can provide. It's on our website, but if you want me to email it to you, we can certainly do that as well. And it is updated as of this year because of some of the new language that had to be included. Okay, so, and then obviously you're gonna meet to approve the employment contract after you guys have come to an agreement. Typically you can do that at the next board meeting, however, depending on when your round 2 interviews fall, you may wanna set a special meeting to get that approved, just cause you're getting, a little further into the year, and the sooner you get it approved, the better. A lot of times you don't wanna have it sitting out there for weeks. And so it can literally be a special meeting that you set. It could be a 3-minute meeting. You come in, call the order, approve the contract, and you all leave. So you can do it over lunch, you can do it in the morning, you can do it whenever works for you guys to get a quorum together to approve that contract. Okay, I just spoke a lot really fast. So do you have any questions on any of that? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Wade if you wanna start trying to come up with the dates for all of those meetings.
So looking at the highlighted one, the first one, the April one to be determined, what are we thinking? I'm gonna throw out April 1st.
Is this a joke?
No, funny, but no.
Walked into that one later.
Works for me.
And that Tuesday? I'm actually at a conference the 2nd and 3rd up in the city, so yes, I'm not trying to make it about me, but yeah.
I'm okay with the Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I'll do that meeting first scheduled, but teachers union on that evening.
What time's that?
That's scheduled for 5:30 to 7. So you would have to move that if you're planning on that.
Okay, we can start that at 7.
Is that April 1st? I'm okay with that.
7 PM. Work?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tuesday?
All right. The next one, the board conducts the first round of interviews. I'm gonna throw out the 8th and the 9th.
I am doing MCA testing in the cities.
That day or what?
I'm gone that whole week.
Well,
You might not be able to be part of this, cause I don't think we can wait a whole week. You know what I mean? Because that would push us all the way back.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gone, not that Monday, but Tuesday, Wednesday.
So you're back on Thursday and Friday.
I think, let me double check.
I can't do Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday and Friday, I think.
I'm open that week, but as we are looking at dates, I just wanna give you a heads up that I am gone the third week of April. So if you don't want my input for the first couple dates.
And how many board members are we looking at having for all of these dates?
Well, we want at least 4. The thing is, if once we do that, even the second round, we really want the same group deciding that, even though, Amy might, but if we come together for the, like, if we do all the interviews and somebody missed those rounds of interviews, that person can still be part of the decision at the end then.
I would say for the final decision, yes, but like, so for example, if you're not at round 1 interviews, you shouldn't have input into who's coming back for the finalist round, because you didn't see the interviews, right?
They will be recorded though, right?
Typically,
Last time.
that's up to you guys, again, we usually say do not live stream, because then a candidate who is later can
Yeah.
know all the questions ahead of time, but
No,
you can
what-
record them and
say
put them
what?
on later.
Yeah,
Could we do Monday the
It's the
7th?
fourth week of April, I'm gone, I'm sorry, not the third.
I was just thinking for if somebody can't be there.
I think we have to do 2 days though, is the issue, because we could do Monday and so we could do, can everyone do Monday the 7th?
Yes.
Yes.
Could everybody do a really long day on the 7th?
Yes.
Is that the issue? Everybody can do one long day?
Could we do long day on Monday?
We would probably, again, if you're talking 6 candidates though, you're now talking, we'd have to start at least by 3 o'clock or 2
You might
o'clock.
wanna start by noon,
Yeah,
or 1 at the latest.
it's gonna be,
'cause you're gonna need
Is this open on that, at that time? If we do go that way?
can make it
We don't
open.
have to figure that out
yeah,
just yet.
ideally,
Instead of-
doing it all on
Yes.
Monday puts us in a better timeline, cause we're getting them done. The thing is, if we can't have a good,
Office.
if we
I
don't
was
have
gonna
a,
say we got 3 buildings and a
Yeah.
district
Yeah.
office.
This
But-
is open.
we can-
if we have a good candidate who can't make it on that one day, then we've just kind of kicked it out then, so.
Okay, what about Thursday?
I can't be.
Oh, you can't be here on Thursday.
A lot of times, once the timeline is set though, they do notice save those dates. Sometimes something might already be on their schedule that they can't,
Right.
and usually they'll let you know that right away at some point before you even make the decision.
I prefer the 2-day rule just for sake of traveling, for people that might be traveling. I
And
think
that's
it's-
one day if there are 6 candidates for us, for like you.
I will make it work and do PTO and all the things. This is important, so.
Can we do the 7th and 8th?
She can't do the 8th.
Oh, sorry. I did that.
I know.
Do we have 4 that can?
But then if we would be able to decide, so let's say we can all get it into one day, then you're good to be part of it. If we
Yes.
can't do that second day and we have some candidates, you'll just have to bail out on that first day and then come back for the second round.
Can I be a part of the second round?
The second round, yes,
Yes.
not like
Okay.
the first round,
Sure.
yes.
Is that
So,
fair?
yeah,
I'd love
Yeah.
to have you there, I just
Yeah.
don't wanna.
I am not sure what time I'd have to leave Tuesday. We're doing our MCA and I've got CPI training. So I don't know the exact timeline. I could do Tuesday, but I think I'd probably have to leave by 4 or 5,
Okay, so we can see what we can do, but we'll try to get
Is
the.
she about to sell you a car warranty? What is happening?
What time do we want to?
I'm a CPI instructor, I could sign you off on it, maybe we could do we'll just do a special training,
just do
alright,
CPI
anyway,
training.
I'm sorry, Danny,
What time were we thinking on that 7th? Or
noon. Noon.
so, and then the other thing is you can put the dates as the 7th and the 8th, but then depending on how many, like if you end up only interviewing 4 people, you can definitely do those all in one day,
Yep.
easily.
Okay,
So that's the
Okay,
other thing to keep
okay.
in mind, and then you can try to make that work.
Sure.
But at least you have the second day held as a backup if you have 6 or 7 candidates that you
Okay.
really wanna interview.
So for fairness, we're saying the 7th and 8th, noon to 5.
oh, it's gonna go beyond, it could be noon to 8. It's just
Okay.
because we wanna try to get them all in Monday, so it's gonna be a unique day. We'll find out once we get everyone here if we can get them in and how many.
If we're doing Tuesday,
Yeah, if we're
what
gonna
time
do
would we
Tuesday.
start then?
So, I'm
Would
sorry.
that also be a noon start time?
Yeah, it'd be a noon start on Tuesday, cause I think if it was Tuesday, she'd still have to start a little bit early.
Is that okay?
I think it's important we're all here because it's a good sign for the board if we're all here to be able to be part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're good with the 7th and the 8th starting at noon both days. We're gonna try to get it all in the 7th. Okay,
Aye, aye.
Good plan.
you got that? Okay, because we're gonna mess that up later, so.
Well, that's easy, good.
The next one, so the board conducts reference checks and holds second round of interviews. Darcy, you were gone that whole next week.
No, I'm gone the 4th week in April.
Oh.
So we could do.
So I'm leaving the 18th and coming back the 23rd, so let's get that in the 14th or the 15th.
Well, the fourth, we could do that in
16th
one
is our
day.
board
That
meeting.
second round will be, we could do it on the 16th, our board meeting day, but that's a weird, it can get a little crowded. I guess doing it on the 14th, is everyone good with the 14th, another Monday for the second round?
Yep, yes.
Well.
What time?
We will,
Can we do
Okay,
evening
what's
ones for
happening
this
on the
one?
14th?
that's
Second round of
second
interviews?
round, board conducts, holds second round of interviews, board selects lone finalists and sets negotiating process.
Can we have an evening meeting for that?
So if you want the public to be involved, yes, it would probably be good to start it after 4 o'clock. So even starting at 5 o'clock would probably be fair,
Wonderful.
okay, is that fair, 5 o'clock?
5 PM, Monday, April 14th.
And typically, again.
5 o'clock work?
But
Okay, all right.
is that gonna work for building tours? Cause when you're doing second rounds, that is their tour.
Yeah, I think we can still, yeah,
Yeah, usually you'll usually you'll start them a little earlier in the day and then you wanna give them a break so that they can kind of get their mind right before their interview. So you wanna make sure they have a decent break time, but
So like the tours during the school day, so they can see things.
either, however it
Okay.
falls, however it works out. And a lot of, like, I can send you some information. A lot of times, like, the person in your role will get, do a lot of that. But typically what they do is they'll do the tour, like a building tour with whoever the principal is of the building. And then you can involve like a couple of students to kind of be the people that like walk them through, to meet the next principal or, depending on if, I'll give you all that information.
Okay.
I'll walk
do you
them through it.
typically set a time limit on the interviews?
Yes, definitely, yes, you want them to have a specific time and a schedule that they follow, because you wanna make sure they're getting the same treatment throughout the whole process.
What is a fair amount of time you give for an interview for a superintendent?
For the interview or for the tour?
Interview,
For the interview, so usually we do round 1 interviews 1 hour, and then round 2 anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how many additional questions you
Okay.
have. For the board interview,
the
yeah,
first round, 60 minutes, second round, 90 minutes,
max,
max.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's telling in herself, they can't get done in 90 minutes, so. So, all right, 60 and 90 for that.
Okay, then looking at April 14th, when is the very next board, well, you have it on the 16th would be your regular board meeting.
Yes.
That might be too quick to do contract approval, but you could tentatively put it on the agenda and then you can always remove it if you don't have it.
Okay.
And then set a special meeting date if needed.
We can do it.
We're confident.
Yeah, as long as the candidate doesn't need more time to consider, hopefully they don't.
Good enough that they can't refuse.
That's right. All right, so then the board designee begins negotiations.
That
So-
automatically becomes,
Good,
I'll
okay.
just put April 14th,
All
that's
right.
usually I automatically do the day after. I'll just put it that night because I'm guessing that you'll send a tentative contract offer via email right away.
Okay. And then that would be on the 16th. If it can, if not, we'll just have to call a special meeting within the next few days after that.
Yeah, as soon
Okay.
as you've kind of set terms, then, yeah.
Any questions?
Great job.
That was the best date and time setting meeting I've ever been at through the board, so thank you.
Absolutely. For me too, you guys, like, that was super impressive. And so I wanna say congratulations, cause that is usually the hardest part of the whole planning meeting is doing that piece, so. And that's usually the thing that takes the longest. Okay, so the next thing is to go over the vacancy brochure, so the draft, the updated draft is in the packet. let's see here. Okay, so, nothing changed on the front page, so if you reviewed that before, nothing has changed there. But if you turn to the second page, you can see there's a robust leadership profile now. And then also the financial information has been added, cause that wasn't in the draft one that I sent you either. So those are the updates to that. So if you could, take a look at that, and I want you to take a look at the results of your survey are also now included. It's the page after the vacancy brochure. So you can see what all of the board, selected and why that leadership profile was, determined then. But please read through it. If something doesn't sound right, let's change it. If you, think something's missing, let's talk about it. And then obviously that last sentence about experience, that's just what I put based on your responses, but that can be changed as well.
Wait, this is also what was sent out to staff today, so then we can update
Okay.
these numbers for that.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to see that before we decide.
Mhm.
I
Personally.
think we're deciding today, can those numbers be put up there?
So it just got sent out today, but I can pull up, we did have a lot of responses come back right away.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
So that's 46 individual people that responded?
Yes.
To all of them? Well, that's a pretty good number.
And the top priorities are pretty easy
Thumbs up, right?
to, yeah.
Well,
So this one reads, acts with honesty in an ethical manner with the school board, staff, and community.
That was your guys' top one as well.
Strong communicator with proven abilities in human relations. And visible and accessible to the school board, staff, students, parents, and community.
You guys had that
We
one.
know. No, we're all on the same page.
Thank you for putting that together too. I would ask that when we're doing interview questions, do something that's a little out of the norm. You know, what's your strengths, what's your weaknesses, weak. What's some scenario questions that you've been through? Tell us in a time when this happened to you, or we'll give them an example, something here, and how would they have handled it? I'm not telling you what to do, but those are the ones I think we get better responses for than more of the canned ones that we've all had when we interview.
I have a sample template for behavioral interviewing, if you want me to send it.
Bring some good examples when it comes down to it about what you'd like to see. So if we come with a couple good questions we want, it kind of would move this along. Again, make them interesting. But we want to get through that just yes and no, and yeah, I communicate well. We'd like more than that.
we want to be entertained as well.
I want to be entertained, yeah, I think that would be, yes.
So do we need anything more on that page then, or?
No, just if you guys have any edits that you wanna make to this leadership profile, or if you're okay with it as is, or if you saw any other edits in the vacancy brochure at all. The next piece is that we need to talk about that salary section, but, I wanna make sure that the rest of it all looks okay, that nothing else was missing. Everything looks correct to you guys. I'll update the search timeline before this gets posted, but otherwise, I'll update whatever we decide tonight, and then I'll send you guys the updated vacancy brochure. And I'll say it's like, last chance for any edits, give them to me by this, date and time, and it will be a quick turnaround time, because we're planning to post on Monday morning, so. And I'll say, if I don't hear anything, I'm assuming it's okay, so it's on you to take the time to reread it and make sure that there's no edits that need to be done. But,
So
Can we have 7?
like add another,
Yeah.
yeah,
Can we add the strong communicator with proven abilities in human relations?
yeah, is everybody okay with that?
I couldn't hear the last, in what?
That was
Adding
one
that
of-
bullet that was from the survey that was given about having somebody with strong communication skills and proven abilities in human relations.
Most of them will have it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is that the only one from the staff, like the staff 3 topics, is that the only one that we didn't have on?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
we will put that on the resume, right?
yeah.
thought I had something in here about communication already that was, it wasn't like created from that bullet, so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't already.
It was included a little bit.
Oh, and foster open communication, so, I might try to tweak it and add it to that final bullet, but just making sure that the aspects of it are included in there.
Yep.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And then I'll send that out to you guys, so just making sure that you take a look at that last bullet and how it's worded to make sure that it's, fits your district, okay.
You have on here that TBDS 304.
Yeah, so your responses from the board were yes, that it was important that they have previous experience, and 4 of you said no, it was not. And so based on that, I put previous superintendent experience preferred but not required. But I can put it's just preferred, I can put it's not required, I can put it's required, whatever you think.
I like preferred,
Preferred,
Preferred.
yes, preferred.
Okay, so just how it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the next piece is to talk about the salary, and you can see the next page has the kind of the base language that we use. Really all I need to know is the salary range. It needs to be your starting salary range for year 1. I know a lot of times year 2 it's more, year 3 it might be more, but what your base salary range is. And if you look at the page after that, I have a salary survey for you to look at comparable district salary information.
Can I ask a question to you or Ed or whoever can answer it? For how do we currently do increases for superintendent? Is that a yearly or bi-yearly? How do we?
Their contract's yearly.
And then do what, like how do we determine?
Well, just like when we do a, non-certified contract, we do a 2.5, or whatever they agreed upon. Then the superintendent will have the same type of verbiage in their contract. So I don't know what it is.
Do you remember what, like, did you start at the 156 or whatever it is now? Sorry.
I wanna say we started.
No, she started lower than that, because she's got a couple increases,
It's
so,
like this, okay.
yeah,
I think she was like 150.
yeah.
She is now.
Yeah, she is now, I think she was like 142.
Oh.
Right,
But again, I'm
yeah.
going back a few years on this. I'm gonna throw out the number 145 to 165.
I agree with you.
And it's just, it could go a little bit lower if we have someone that comes in that's new as a superintendent, then that's reflected in the pay. If someone's been a superintendent for 10, 15 years, and this is where they wanna be at, I think that needs to be reflected in that.
I think 165 is a little high.
160 then? You gotta think though, if
Our-
we're a smaller district, if someone's coming from somewhere, if they've been a superintendent for 10 years, they'll probably already be at that.
I feel like.
I have a friend that's a super making 205 for,
You what?
I have a friend that's a superintendent that's making 205.
What
Where
size is
at?
the town, what size is the school?
Like size, what this, I mean,
Size,
size.
the cost of living.
It's a little bigger, but there's a lot of other things in their contracts that are negotiated that are. I don't think 165 is too high considering how much we're also already paying admin.
But again, that's the top, and
Right.
As the board chair, you might be asking me to do it, I really don't want to do that. So that I'm going to be, yeah,
You don't wanna do which,
I don't wanna go to the top number.
Oh, you don't?
No, why would I do that? I'd be horrible at it. So no, I guess it's just kind of a range just in case.
I like having a range at 165 just in case.
I'd like you to be able to go to that number. I mean,
Um,
obviously,
Exactly.
start there.
Well, and know that we can budget for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hire a superintendent, that's not the time to be horse trading and going back and forth.
No, so we want somebody good.
We just had a situation last year, 2 years ago, hired, and all of a sudden we were horse trading. And so, yeah, this is what we got, and here we go.
What was your proposed start?
145 to 165. Yeah. Usually we don't go lower than the current superintendent, but again, if someone's coming in with no experience, they have been a superintendent before, I think that's fair to look at that as a possible start.
Is it legal to say commensurate upon experience, or, something to that effect?
Yep, our wording is negotiate commensurate with experience and
All right.
qualifications. So, yeah, that's what our language is already.
Okay.
And it says contract length is negotiable as provided in Minnesota statute, so of course up to 3 years.
That word.
And then additional benefits available may include, and I have a list of what they are, what you sent me, and I'll put the highlighted ones, really the ones that they're looking for. right off the bat, and I say maybe including it because, or may be available because a lot of times, depending on who the super is, they may want to negotiate, well, I don't need insurance, I have insurance, so I'd like a higher salary
Right.
or whatnot. And so you just include that it may be available, so. And that also then gives you kind of that leeway with the salary as well. You can go higher, you can't go under, so.
So what are we,
145 to 165?
Everybody's comfortable with that? Okay.
Lower's better.
What was that?
Lower's better.
Lower's better.
for kids that are qualified and
Yeah.
have experience, I don't wanna lose someone.
Well, you get what you pay.
Okay, and then a few things I like to go over, we call our ground rules, our do's and don'ts of the search. So these aren't in there, so these are just some of the notes that I like to remind you. Please, as board members, turn down any candidate who asks you to be a reference or write a letter of recommendation, because that puts you in a really awkward position should you have a much stronger candidate in the pool and you decide you don't wanna vote for this person. So please turn them down. It's also, I mean, it will give them the, feeling that they may have an upper hand or a leg in or whatnot, so we ask that you please turn any candidate down who's asking for a letter of recommendation or a board member reference. Also, if you're contacted by candidates before you receive application materials or before you've selected, direct them to MSBA. You shouldn't be answering questions individually with any candidates, and so just direct them to me. Sometimes you'll have people who reach out to people in the district, and that's fine, but again, if you have any questions, just direct any candidates to me. We'll handle all of that information for you. We tell you don't conduct a deep social media investigation yourself on all of the candidates, but because MSBA usually does that in our vetting, so don't go through a rabbit hole on candidates, but definitely do your vetting on your candidates as well. And again, if you're finding things that are concerning, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Sometimes, depending on the situation, we may have already vetted the candidate for another search. I may already know about a situation. I might be able to give an explanation or whatnot. So let me know if you're finding something that's really concerning. And again, you will be lobbied by people. Listen and think, don't debate, don't get into the conversation with them, hear what they're saying. And then again, if you need information, let me know. Also, if you're related to any of the applicants, there is special voting circumstances. So if you are related, please reach out to MSBA so we can talk to you about that. Because if they're related, they have to be related to you in the 4th degree. If it's more than that, there's no special voting circumstances. But if they're related to you within the 4th degree, they can only be by a unanimous vote. So just keeping that piece in mind, sometimes that comes up. And don't do recruiting of candidates yourself, because again, that gives somebody the idea that they may have a leg up on their competition, and that doesn't necessarily happen. However, for all of our wonderful audience, if you guys know of people that you think would be excellent superintendents in the district, please encourage them to apply. But again, school board members should not be encouraging anybody to apply, okay? All right. So in-district contact person, I'm gonna assume it'll be Mandy throughout the search. Yep, so she'll be getting the information out. And then who is your confidentiality employee, meaning whoever handles like personnel files, data retention as far as that stuff goes, because that's who I need to. You are too? Easy, perfect. Okay, so then after the search is over, you'll get access to the online system so that you can download the application materials that you need to according to your data retention policy and file them however you need to do that. Because I know a lot of times districts, you have to save their applications, so. Okay. And then the next page is the limited search agreement. That's the page that we should all be on, so you can see what we're all doing and what we're not doing. It kind of also can give you an idea of things that you need to keep in mind to do throughout the search. But then The page after that, you have the opportunity if you wanna do national advertising or additional background checks. It's up to you guys if you wanna do national advertising, you can see what their individual prices are for the ones that we typically do, if we do any. It's not common, usually for really large districts, it's automatic, we do them, smaller districts, not so much. And I should say by nature of our application system, it is a national search because our application system, it's a proprietary, it was made specifically by a school board association, and it's only used by school board associations who are doing superintendent search. And so I think there's about 31 states across the country who all use it. So basically, anybody who's has looked in those states or applied in those states, they all have access to it. I mean, anybody has access to it because it's available, but those who are looking, by nature of that, they know to look and they can see. And so a lot of times we'll have like Wisconsin will look at it, we'll have candidates from Iowa who look at it, South Dakota, North Dakota. So by nature of that, I don't think it's necessary that you do any national advertising, but again, it's up to you guys if you think it's best for your district.
Anyone wanna go for national advertising?
No.
I think we're all saying no.
Okay, sounds good. No, okay, background checks. So you, obviously you guys do background checks on all employees and you will do that again anyways. This is an extra option if you want us to do it. Sorry, I'm talking too fast because I'm trying to not take so much time. Okay, I'll read to you what it all includes and then I'm just gonna pass this around to you guys and then I'll come back to see if you're interested in it or not. So it includes, it's $395 per candidate that you want us to do it on. So you may just wait until you decide who you're gonna offer, or you may just wait until who you're bringing back for the final interview if you wanna do that. You just have to let me know because it does take about a week to get back, and so you wanna make sure you do it soon enough to have those results. Or you can just wait, because typically the motion that you'll make to offer a contract will be dependent on them passing a background check that's satisfactory to the school board. So keep that in mind when you make that motion to offer a contract. And so then you can wait for it to come back if you just want it on the loan one. But this is what it includes: national criminal, global watch list, county criminal, statewide criminal, social security and residence, national sex offender, federal criminal, federal civil, DMV report, education verification, their highest degree, employment verification up to 10 years, social media review with a comprehensive report. So I'm gonna pass this to you so you can kind of see what it looks like. So the first pages are all just like what all those background checks look like. And then I have folded over the first page of what like the social media piece looks like. So they'll do like a social media report. It's a comprehensive report that comes with. And so it'll give you like an overview of like how many social profiles. I should say this is a social media sweep of their accounts, not of what people say about them. That's not what this is. Anybody can say what they want on their own social media. This is of their accounts. And so basically what it does is it looks for flagged behaviors. So it's not necessarily saying they're good or they're bad, but it's certain behaviors that they're flagging. And so it'll tell you like which profiles they have, how many followers, how many people are following them, that sort of thing. And then I'll pass it around so that you can look at it, but it talks about different flagged behaviors. So if they make disparaging comments, drug or alcohol mention, gory images, certain keywords, I think you can select certain keywords if you want them to look for it. Politics or government, anything with prejudice, profanity, self-harm, anything that's suggestive, any threats, nudity images, that sort of thing. So, and then it shows, there's like an example, it will actually have those posts that they flagged, so you can see what they are. And so like if there's a picture, it shows you the picture so that you can see it. So I'll pass that around to the board to take a look at. If you guys, obviously, this is an example one, and superintendents don't post things like these examples. However, just so you can see what it looks like.
So just for timeline type thing then, if we were gonna do something like this on the final two candidates, we'd have to start it immediately because we'd be interviewing a week later, it takes a week, and then we'd have the information before we make the final decision.
Yes.
But
Yep.
again, we say that your contract is.
Right, negotiable on that.
But even then, when we do that second interview, we have possibly 2 days, cause we'd like to get that finalized, we'd have to have that back, so I guess we'd have to
You
decide
wanna
if we
do it
wanna.
after round one, yeah.
To have it back right away.
Well, we'd like to have it back before we
Yeah.
offer a contract.
Mandy, how
Right.
much is our background check, just out of curiosity?
They're not that,
$12.
yeah.
And what percentage of these items do we cover?
I believe we cover, I don't know about the global search that you were talking about. We don't do any sort of social media,
Right.
obviously. But any criminal.
It's just criminal.
Accounting.
Let's do a test one on Brandon, just to see what comes back.
Can we a la carte this to get the social media one separate?
It might be worth it.
Can we negotiate?
So do we need a decision on this now, or we can make that as we go
No,
forward?
you guys can tell, you can contact me right after your round one and you can be like, okay, we're down to these 2 candidates, can you run background checks on them right away?
Okay.
And we can get it done, we'll send it to them right away that day, but you guys will need to let them know we're doing it, so that they know that
Amy,
it's
are
legit.
these included in the full MSBA?
No,
No, these are still a la
no,
carte,
only,
so-
yeah, no,
Wade and Eric, had you guys done these in any previous hirings?
I don't think we did.
No, I didn't even know, I thought that they were already doing something like this.
these are a brand, so we used to offer a background check option, but it didn't have the social media piece. The social media piece is new this year. We switched our background check company and it's something that they offered and we were in, obviously with superintendents, the type of role that they have, it's a very public role. We thought it was important to include it.
I agree.
How many do you find have no social media?
Say that again.
How many do you find have 0 social media?
It's rare. Usually they have social media, but I mean, most superintendents know not to have plague behaviors. Sometimes you find it, so.
I can get a better answer of what our background check covers also.
What's that?
I can get a better answer of what ours specifically covers and send it out to.
I can leave you this list that says what all is included, and then you guys can compare it and decide later. Yeah, it is not something that has to be decided now, so just let me know.
Any questions on the background?
Thank you.
Alright, we will move on. So, the last thing I have for you guys is to select your 2 screening priorities for the district. And so the page that's highlighted like this, these are just some example ones. You guys can ask whatever you want. I did have a board member submit a couple of other questions, and so they are, the loose page that I, also included. So those are also some, options for you for screening. And so what these are is these will actually go in the application. They will respond to these questions. They'll have one that's already, like after reading our leadership profile, why do you think you're a good fit, that type of a question. And then you can have 2 custom questions. And they don't have to be one of these. They can be these as written, they can be modified, or you can create your own.
What's the average that people put for their
Um,
screens?
You know, it kind of depends on what's happening in the district. You know, I think a lot of people usually do the number 1, number 4, and I usually recommend that you narrow it down and not leave all 4 of those things in there, but you can if you want.
Cause I think some of them are kind of similar to each other.
Yeah, we see number 1, number 4, number 9. And you know, a lot of times, you know, if you know, for example, like a referendum's coming up and you kind of just wanna know their experience right off the bat, like sometimes we'll have them, you know, they'll want to ask that. Think also through like, what do you need to know to decide if you wanna interview them? You also wanna be careful that you're not scaring candidates off by asking certain questions. And so we typically will tell them to refrain from the referendum question in the application process, but it's a great interview question, so.
I'm a big fan of 14.
I like number 2.
I like number 2 as well.
Nice part is that these can be interview questions as well.
Yeah.
Are the ones that are not stapled, like those also examples for screening?
Were they what? Say that again?
The ones here that were not stapled, also part of the screening.
Yeah, those were submitted by a school board member, so you can read those too to see if you're interested in those.
So we want to narrow this down to 2 right now.
2 tonight, yes.
Okay.
If you could let me know which 2 questions you want
We
me to
have
have.
number 2 and
in the
14
application.
that have been presented out there.
Yep,
I liked the 2 on the supplemental,
number 2 on this one.
I liked both of those on this sheet.
Is that the 2 you were talking about, the other 2?
No, I was talking about number 2 on this one and number
I think 2, or number 2 on that, the single leaflet or the single paper is very similar to 12 and 13 of the other ones on there. In my opinion, maybe not.
Let's do that. Is everyone okay with 14?
Fourteen is also very similar to 4. I feel like if you don't like 14, you like 4. They both talk about the management and accountability and balance.
Does anybody have anybody else like 2 with the collaboration, trust, respect? It also kind of talks about communication and that, kind of feels out their values.
I mean, that's like a buffet question.
I agree.
It covers that.
I mean, come on.
Which number was that?
Number 2.
Number 2.
2 on here.
Okay.
But it says give some strategy, so it's not just saying, do you do this, it's asking for.
We can't leave these here.
Well, you're gonna
It's
get
gonna be top
wildly
salad.
varied.
I prefer written essays. That's why I'm going that route. What do you?
Well, since we have 17 questions here and everyone is starting to pick different ones, we're gonna have to do this a little differently then. Pick 2 and we're gonna go around the room and see which ones are
There
the
you go, I
top.
like that.
Okay, Nikki, go.
do the chart like we did.
We have, you wanna help me with this?
Yep.
All right.
doing tallies.
Look at you, cuckoo,
So you're
cuckoo.
doing
All
the
right.
2 over there.
Nikki, 1 and 2 on this sheet. The
Got it.
addendum.
Got it.
All right. Mr. Morgan,
I need more time.
I'll go.
Dan, thank you.
I'll go number 2 on the 2 screening priorities page, and then I'll go number 2, so I'm going with the double deuces.
Sounds lucky.
Come on. You get back to studying, all right? Brandon,
That's a riverboat, isn't it?
I wanna know, 4. And, I need 2 on the 1 to 15.
Number 2, 2
Yeah.
and 4,
The one that's, 2 and 4,
both on this page.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
2 and 4, same as Brandon.
You hate agreeing with Brandon.
I do, so. Paige?
I was looking at 12, but, okay,
You do
2,
you.
2 and 12.
2 and 12. Darcy?
And I'm gonna do 2 and 4.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I like.
Mr. Morgan?
Uh-oh.
Okay, I like question number 9 on the list of questions.
I'm sorry. If you've been listening, that's already a loser, but anyway.
Your opinion matters here.
You do you. Morgan, you okay.
It's fine, I like that one too. I mean, I had more than 2 circled here, so I could
Yeah.
have been swayed.
We're not going backwards.
Yep, not going backwards.
Number 9?
And I guess number 2, but can we pare it down?
No.
Which
No.
number 2, this one or this one?
No, the real number 2.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so we're looking at 2 and 4 on the first question, or on the first page. Do you want, so for the district resources, do you wanna leave all 4 of those in there, or do you guys have focus areas that you really wanna know how they use those resources? Or leave all 4? We've seen it done both ways, so whatever makes sense for you guys.
Lean it up.
Hasn't gone yet.
I did. I think it needs to be leaned up if we're picking that.
Okay,
Linda.
So which one's leaned up? Number 2?
No, 4. I was
Four.
asking about number
Both
4.
of them. We're doing 2 and 4.
We're doing 2 and 4?
2 and 4 looks like the win.
I want human.
They're both
And financial.
buffet questions.
Human and
I mean,
financial?
that's what.
Yeah,
It's way too low.
come on.
We're the ones that have to screen these, so I prefer something a little more.
Well, it's also very telling about how they write this.
Yeah,
So
but
we
it's
left
gonna
it
be
broad.
Ricky Tikki Tavi, oh, well, we take the needs of the community and we're
These-
gonna be
Yeah, I don't want
shepherds of
generic
the taxes.
Well, then I think they might get screened out because you don't sound like you wouldn't like that.
No, that's silly.
I think some of these would be great
two of those
interview
type of
questions, but we're talking about screening them.
All right, so we're down to 2 and 4. Mr. Morgan, how would you amend number 2?
I would take an axe to the number 4. I think number 4 should be taken out and,
Well, that's not part of the deal. So we've already agreed on number 4. How would you
No,
figure
I
out number
didn't.
4?
That wasn't-
then ask somebody else. I'm not a fan of number 4.
What about 12?
I'm not a fan of 4 either.
We're still down to 2 and 4.
By what majority?
It was majority. That's what it came out when the
Okay.
vote, when we picked ours.
Okay, so how do we pare number 2 down?
Or you're back in the game now?
I'm back in the game.
Okay, all right. How would you pare number 2 down?
That's what we're doing?
Well, we don't have to, but you want to. So I'm gonna allow you to. Well, how would you like to pare it down?
I'd rather do number 4,
We're doing 2.
but we're doing 2. Wow, you are not helping.
No, we're doing 2 questions.
We're doing number 2 and number 4.
I know we're doing 2 questions, thank you.
She gets paid by the hour, so she's here all night, so.
Yeah, the meter's running, yeah.
I
Mr.
know.
Morgan, we are down to number 2 and number 4. Is there some edit you would like to make to one of these questions?
Well, Mr. Welper, just one more thing. Yeah, well,
Since you filibuster time.
yeah,
Maybe
right.
menu or.
Would you like to read War and Peace for a while?
He's
while we're
only
doing
got one Pepsi down.
I mean, where do you start on here?
I mean, you could just say collaboration. To me, collaboration has trust and respect if it's done
Yeah.
effective and efficiently.
And just
There you
leave the
go.
rest of it in there, take out
Yeah.
trust and respect.
Because we wanna know how they interact with all of those.
How would you,
Can
how
we
about
take
this?
out-
To
can we just
promote
say-
collaboration, trust, and respect with all stakeholders.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, then they can,
With all stakeholders.
In
That's it.
your
I like
previous or
Okay.
current.
We're not leading them in any
Right,
direction. They
right.
have to
They can
think
define who
outside the
stakeholders
box
are.
and-
Okay.
Thank you.
All
That would
right,
be telling to see who they
Yes.
all right.
And
Boy.
you want me to
Love
leave
it.
it saying in your previous or current roles? Or do you want me to take that out too? And just say
Yes.
with all stakeholders?
Geez, we had it right at the end there, Amy.
I wanted to make sure I was doing the
I
right
think
thing.
you had to
It's
throw a buzzword in there, didn't you?
I think there does need to be a timeline on there, otherwise we don't know what they're talking about.
So yeah, leave in your previous or
Okay.
current roles.
Okay,
Gotta end the sentence properly.
Okay. And number 4,
I wanna know what he doesn't like about it.
talk to the bear.
There's too many spokes.
Well, it's a softball question. Isn't
Okay,
that the-
read it
isn't that
out
the
loud
job,
like you were
though?
interviewing.
Isn't it? John,
John.
how do you manage district resources? Human, financial, physical, and technological? How do you ensure accountability, efficiency, and equity in the allocation and utilization of resources?
I grabbed
There's
that.
99 syllables in that
If I got
sentence.
that question.
That's a lot of words.
Blah. I mean, come on, that is just a softball.
Give
This
me,
is a question when
give
they
me a
go
week
on
to write a 10-page
Yes.
paper
When
and
they
send
fly,
my
they're
messages.
just typing this.
correct.
We're
It's
not
not an
taking
interview,
this.
they're
They're
typing.
typing.
It's a written response in the application.
It's-
So
Right,
time
but
to think
it's-
about it and be as thorough as needed versus on the
I
spot.
just think it's still too much.
I just have a strong visceral response to that
That's
question.
That's okay.
And that's,
Good, then maybe they'll have
you
to
asked for
see
my
it.
Yeah,
opinion.
no, I,
Do you have another way that you would rewrite that? Perhaps
Perhaps through interpretive dance.
Let's see it.
I would like to see that.
No, you wouldn't.
Don't egg it.
Like your preference, yeah,
so would you just prefer the first question or you have the commas, the commas maybe?
Honestly, you could ditch out
Be mad
the
there's
first
not an
question and
oxford comma in
say,
there?
So,
and just use the second part of it where it
Take it
talks
easy,
about
Sarah.
Utilizing.
Well, I was just thinking
Right.
if you could.
District
Can we get rid of the first part of
Just
question
yeah.
number
Well,
four
I mean, there's
and
like,
just ask the second part?
Yeah, just ask, how do you ensure
There's-
accountability?
yeah, I mean, there's like 9 questions in there.
And utilization of district resources. I would add district.
How about tell us about your experience managing district resources
Yeah, and how did you prioritize district resources?
and how did you prioritize them?
Or, you know, or something like, I think that's.
Tell us about your experience managing district resources and how did you prioritize them?
Like it. I like
And then
it.
what do you think?
I think that's good.
Mr. Morgan? You seem to be the sand in my wheel here, so.
But that's a, well, that's a.
It is.
After we say prioritize.
It is, well, we're,
Is this good now? Does that sound short enough?
my ex-wife did say the lobster doesn't grow unless there's confrontation, so, yeah,
Are we good with that one?
I'll allow it.
Can you repeat it? I wanna make
I
sure
was
we're
gonna
doing
have you
properly.
repeat it, but now
Okay,
I'll-
I will,
all
I'll repeat
right.
what I have, and you
That
tell me if I'm
sounds
wrong. Tell us about your experience managing district resources and how did you prioritize them?
Well, then you can hear, hopefully we'll hear, well, ideally we'll hear, well, when each building had a budget and, you know.
And they can elaborate if they want,
Yeah.
and whatever, and then we will look at how
Or
they
they
elaborate.
built it ground up, yeah, see how they do it.
Do we set mark limits?
Staffing where needed.
No.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting reading some of these responses. Sometimes you'll get a response this long and sometimes you'll get a response this long, so.
Well, is that not a terrible question?
It is.
I'm not crazy.
We have a lot of
Right?
districts who use it.
But I
Thank you.
I
So,
get those.
We have decided on 2
Doesn't
questions,
mean
we have the
districts are
wording,
successfully hired.
we have the questions. Is there anything else on our agenda?
I just want to, if you guys have any questions for me, and I just want you to just take note of this. Because nowadays, we're seeing more sitting superintendents leaving because of either board relations or board superintendent relations. So I just like to share the foundations for a good board superintendent relationship. Of course, throughout this process, we're touching on number 3, number 4, and number 6 typically. But we're not doing, it is an option to you if you want us to come back in the fall to do the transition workshop. It's part of the full package, but if you are interested in us doing that, it's basically setting expectations with your new superintendent and then doing looking through what the evaluation process looks like and setting that up. So that would be an option for you
When
guys
do
to
you
do in
need
the
that
fall.
decision for, when do you need that decision by?
Oh, you guys can do it anytime. So you don't, yeah.
I think that's a good idea, just
Okay.
for our new board members and for our community.
How many superintendent searches are going on right now that you're working on? Or well, that
Oh.
MSBA is working on or that you know of?
We just had a bunch finish, so I don't know
Oh.
the current number.
We got Albert Lee, Casson,
Overly,
Alaska,
yes, Byron,
Byron.
yep, there's Otan is going on, but not
Otan's going on?
they were doing an internal search last I heard though.
Alaska
St. Peter.
Finals next week.
Oh yeah, on Alaska, they were doing one, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're,
got
are they
down to the
done?
final 2.
They're down to 2. And then, there's a bunch up north, Proctor and Kellier I think they just wrapped up last night, McGregor just wrapped up.
How many applications have these smaller districts been getting, applications about?
That's a really good question. So in the earlier part of the search season, they were smaller pools and they have been getting larger more recently.
Oh.
So we've been, and granted, when I say larger, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, applicant pools were closer to the 30, 40 range. Now we're seeing a lot less than that. I'd say the average is probably 12 or 13 applicants. I think we had one close this week that was 5, but it was a part-time position for a very small district. Otherwise, we had, I think, 17, 14, 13, another 17. So that's kind of around the size that we've been seeing. I'd say on average 12 to 13 is 12 to 14 is about the applicants or the pool size.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan?
Can we ask them if they have any questions on the timeline, the sitting?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions about timeline?
I don't have questions about timeline, but I do have a question about salaries. At the last board meeting, the budget talk was pushed off. So I'm just, without having that budget talk first, offered and having salary talk, that's kind of my question.
So what's your question
Well, my
specifically?
question is, can we offer a salary amount without having a budget conversation or first?
Well, we already know that we're paying that position in the budget going forward. So it's, it's a known, we just don't know, is it gonna be X or Y, whether it's, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean.
I mean, in general,
Do we have an
know.
exit line? Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
So has it already been budgeted, this salary, or is that?
I reached out to the business manager and we talked and that's where the range came. Of course, she didn't like the high range because it costs more money. So she goes, I don't like it. We originally talked around 170 and she goes, I don't like that. And I'm like, okay. So that's why when tonight we kind of went with what we're looking at now. And we already have budgeted like that 151. So yeah, Julie was involved.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was just,
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I have just a clarification question. So, the open meetings, like, does that include the interviews?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep,
So
the
the
interviews
interviews
are all
are-
done in open meeting. Anybody is welcome to attend the interviews.
So, how is it truly open if a teacher wants to attend and the interviews are during the teaching day?
well, you got PTO to use, right? No?
Not much, we get 3 days a year.
That is a good question.
I have that same concern.
That's why the second interviews, we're trying to have more towards after the thing so more people can make it. So during the first round of funds, it would be somewhat more difficult. We're starting them at noon just so we can get them done. The second round, I think we were looking to start at 4.
Could we, if
Five.
we
Or no,
do-
5, excuse me, 5 o'clock.
Wait, could we, if we do have, like she said, if we decide on 5 and we know that we can fit them in, say we wanna end by 9, we go backwards, do them on that.
Once we narrow it down, we can set the timeline to do that. So that's a good point. We'll try to accommodate that. I can't promise it, but we'll do our best. For the second round, it would be available, so you'd be able to be there. Yes, Nick?
And I think we should look at, Jacob, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I know like, isn't there something already in contract if they're applying for something internally? Promotional, that there would be some kind of leniency for their time to take to interview? I
Like
guess
for
it
someone
shouldn't-
who is already employed.
If they're
within
already
the district.
employed within our district.
No, because it's a different group. So if you move it from,
Oh, yeah,
it's not within the same.
sorry, I was thinking out loud, so, okay. That might be something we need to look at next time for negotiations.
I think you probably, I'm assuming you want the input from the teachers, and so I'm wondering if there's a way to use it would be a small amount of people, but if we're starting at noon, could there be professional leave for the selected people that are able to join the interviews?
I think we have to figure that out.
I guess we'd have to take a look at that again.
Or could we do the recorded option and then do like a viewing? That, I think Amy, you had mentioned that they.
So on our 4-1 meeting, maybe we can discuss that? What's up?
I'm thinking, it's okay. Something look crazy on my face that happened.
So our first round of interviews is until that second week of April, so if we meet on that 4-1 date that we have, can we determine that? If we're gonna include an interview committee outside of us, or same day, or how that's gonna work?
Oh, you mean like if the teachers want to come in and be a part of,
Right, not just view, but actually
Yes,
have some
yes.
input, which personally, I would like to have that.
Well, last time we had a gap, was anyone over there in the last superintendent search in the gallery?
I attended, but I wasn't
Okay.
able to provide my comments.
Okay, so didn't we have something through the union where you had to let Nicole know by such and such time, and 10 or 12 of you would show up, and then after each person went, you gave the table notes to Beth? Did you run that, Beth, or was that 3 times ago?
That was 3 times ago.
Okay, so anyways, so that's how we'll get their input, is we'll have like a jury box almost, with staff, watching the interviews.
Bless you.
And then they can hand off their slips to whoever, and then those can get tabulated, so that we get their input, and it'll be anonymous unless you sign your name, but you shouldn't, so we'll scratch that out.
Yeah, please don't put your name on it.
And once they're tabulated, they're kind of destroyed, or
Yeah,
how is
it'll go
that,
in with.
how does that work from?
No, if the board sees it, it's subject to data request,
Yeah.
so it would need to be filed with all of your board notes and everything. It would need to be
Do they
kept
have to
different
have their
here.
name on it, did you
No,
say?
I would say don't put your name on it specifically for that
Right.
reason, but we also. can't
Mandy,
destroy
could you
it.
create a Google form for each candidate that they can just do a QR code, scan it on their phone and do it as their, or laptop or whatever?
Which is a great option as long as we're able to be here during that time frame.
But you can watch that online afterwards.
Oh, that's not how it worked last night.
So we gotta back up, because we have different things that come in, because we have our first round.
Yeah.
We have our first round, where we're gonna have the 5 to 6 applicants.
But not the first round.
So the first round is gonna have to start at noon, I think, just so we might have to get them in. We'll try to accommodate the best we can, but we may not be able to. The second round, those will be after like 5 o'clock. So no, we're trying to set it up so, no, because you might be giving feedback on somebody who's not gonna be, you'll never see them again. But we're more interested in people getting feedback on the final candidates. And the final candidates doesn't have to be 2, we could bring back 3. And we've done that in the past as well. So I think it's more important that people can make that, and we're trying to make that later in the day. Is that fair to folks?
I disagree. I feel like if you're putting the meetings at noon, you're telling the staff and you're telling the public that we are not making this convenient for you to be a part of.
It could look at it that way, at the same time, we're also trying to make sure, again, coming back to the board, that's one of our main duties here, and to try to accommodate everyone's schedule here, that's why we're trying to get it that, so that all the board members can be present. If that day doesn't work, we might be missing people again, and I think that's where we're looking at. So the compromise was that Monday at noon.
I understand that, but I also want to make sure that the board understands that I am a taxpayer and I put you guys in this position. I'm also a staff member, and this is my future superintendent, also the superintendent of my children. And so if I cannot attend because you've not made this possible for me to attend, that's very frustrating,
Okay.
okay? So I just wanna make sure that everyone understands that. That you're sending a message to me as a staff member and as a person who works full-time and as a community member, that this is not an important enough process to make it possible for a huge majority of this community to attend.
I was just thinking, so we do have 2 dates, I know that you can't be here on the 8th after a certain time, but if we have an hour for that, you said the first one is usually an hour, right?
The first round?
First round.
Yeah.
So if we have 6 candidates, if we did 5 to 9 on Monday, and then what's the latest you could be here on Tuesday?
And I'm just one.
I know.
And I would, and I've gotta go because I'm doing a teacher duty, so I get it, I know.
Or a 4 o'clock.
No,
I
start at
can
4.
Start at 4,
Start
so
at
that
4.
school, they don't have, like, people that live far away don't.
4 start at 3.
That's hard for a lot of other.
Well, I mean.
But that's,
I get what you're saying.
What time do your contract hours end?
3:30.
3:30? So start at 3:45. Is that enough, is 15 minutes enough time for staff to get here?
Yeah.
Or wherever the interviews are gonna be held, if they're here, that would be an option.
But it's unfair to the rest of the tax-paying community, though, that, if they want to see it. I mean, personally, evening hours are way better for me. We're all gonna have to use PTO to be here to watch them. So, I don't know. If we can find later dates, I'm all for that. If we can't ever make everybody happy.
I can do 4 to 9 Monday and Tuesday on those 2 dates that we
I can as well.
originally.
We're talking the April 1st and 2nd.
Wade, you're gone the
April
3rd and
7th and
4th.
I'm
The
sorry, 7th and 8th. No, 7th and 8th, I'm here both.
But what if we both it up so that Paige can be here? You're gone the 3rd and the 4th, is that what you said?
2nd and 3rd.
So what if we did the 4th and the 7th? Because then you're both here, we're all here.
I don't know about doing a Friday.
well, it's just,
Fridays might work better for people who are traveling. Better than a Tuesday.
Candidates
Sports.
might like Fridays.
I don't think it's
Depends on when
Fridays
they're
or
coming.
Friday.
I'm fine with
the
Friday.
I'm
7th and
open
8th.
for Fridays, but
So the 4th and the 7th, and we do 4.
Or till whatever.
Well, let me just clarify. Fridays, have other districts done Fridays? Is it something that's common? Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay, fair enough.
in March, I have interviews, I think 3 of the 4 Fridays.
Okay.
So,
Everybody.
So let's bring this back to clarify now. So on April 4th, we'd be looking to start at 3:45.
Or are we saying like,
Can we just do 4 o'clock to be?
Yeah, 4 o'clock's fine.
Simple.
just
I'll make it work.
Friday, yeah, okay, I'll make it work.
okay, so April 1st is 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. April
4th
Fourth,
at 4 o'clock, and April 7th.
at 4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock.
Now that is district-wide staff development and oversight committee date.
Which one?
The 7th.
Which one?
well,
The
maybe
7th.
skip it.
Well, yeah, I will skip it, but there's a whole bunch of our staff will be at it.
Well, they can skip it too, I mean, whatever, so we miss a
We
meeting.
can talk to the union about moving them. Do we think the union would move them?
I'm sure that you would.
I would think so.
Yeah, I think the 4th and the 7th.
We've got 2 of the 4
We would move it.
officers.
Okay, so, yeah, there we go, yeah. I have a feeling that's gonna pass, so let's go with, so we're good on April 4th
We're gonna speak.
and April 7th. Now then, we might wanna only interview 4 people. So there's a lot of variables here yet that we can fit into this yet.
Okay,
And if
Okay.
we can go later on like Monday, like 5, just to accommodate more.
And we'll see like how many we have coming back, and again, we're also telling people that we're interviewing them on the 1st, so we have to give a little bit of time for, they could have stuff going on as well, so those 2 days,
1st, 4th, and 7th.
yep,
I would recommend on the 1st, after you make your decision. So, okay, as a reminder, at that meeting on the 1st, you guys will be using alpha identifiers. Before you adjourn, one of you needs to read the names of the finalists that you're gonna interview out loud. Do not do it in the order of their alpha identifier. You don't want it to come back who was who or whatever. So you want, because obviously as you're talking about candidates, you don't want everyone to know the data privacy piece.
Okay.
So you'll just read the names right before you adjourn of who
just do
you're
it in
gonna be
alphabetical
interviewing.
order.
You could just do them in alphabetical, yeah.
Wade, that's your job.
I will do it for you.
I could think to
but I thought some names aren't made public until we get to the finals.
No. As soon as they are selected to be interviewed by the school board that night, which is April 1st.
Yep.
Those who you are selecting to interview, before that meeting adjourns, their names become public, so you'll just
Okay.
read their names aloud of just who's gonna be interviewed, everybody else's private data forever.
Okay.
So you'll read their names aloud, and so then I would, whoever is going to be calling them to invite them for an interview, I would do it that night. And so that they're ready for Friday or Monday, whichever day they end up making it, so.
Okay.
All right,
And before you schedule their interview, I would call each one and say, these are the interview days and the times. Are there any times you can't make work? So that you
Those are
get
in
all
our
that
packet though,
information
right?
before you actually schedule them.
They have that's in our packet though?
They'll have the vacancy brochure with the dates.
Will that be, when they do the pre-application items, will you be able to put on there, these are the dates tentatively scheduled for, so that they have an idea of it being?
Yep, this vacancy brochure is what we post, and it will have those dates all in there so that they know what to save, like what dates to save. They may already have something scheduled that they just can't get out of. A lot of times if they can, they'll move it,
Right.
so.
So they'll have an idea that.
Yeah.
Or even maybe when applying, if they know what our dates are, they may say,
Right off the
only
bat.
this date works for me.
And and that's why, a lot of times I'll get calls from candidates and they may have that information, and so I'll pass that information on to Wade so that you guys have that and know that. You can't talk about that in an open meeting because it's private still, but at least for scheduling purposes, he'll know, and then you guys can figure that out. There may be some, for example, somebody may be unavailable, and then I would let him know and Mandy know that they're unavailable, but however, they could do a Zoom interview. You guys need to decide if you're willing to allow somebody a Zoom interview. And so without saying who it is,
Mhm.
he could ask you guys that if you're willing to accept that, so.
Okay, any other questions? We'll send out lots of reminders, and I say we, I mean Mandy, but anyway, thank you, Mandy.
Sorry,
Yes.
Wade, I'm sorry. When we have our second round, is the same protocol where we announce the names again?
After round one, you'll determine who you're gonna bring back for round two, and you don't have to announce the names because the motion will be made,
Got
will be made with their names in
Just
it.
making
So
sure.
you don't have to announce
Okay,
it.
perfect.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay, is there a,
What's the
oh.
What's the average, what's the average length, or what's the average tenure of superintendents post-COVID?
That's a
Or
really
what's
good
the trend,
Yeah, it's so hard to say. It's,
if you had to say?
well, how long they last?
I'm your drunk uncle at the Christmas party.
It really
You
depends.
can't get away from me.
No, it really depends on the
No.
district.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Fair to say that tenure is going down.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
you're slipperier
Well,
than a
I mean, that happened right
Philadelphia
off the bat. is-
What a horrible question, you talked about questions, what type of question is that out of the?
Ask questions, I know the answer.
What's the average height of a northern superintendent?
You guys.
No, sorry.